I knew about the affair for 6 months before I said anything. 6 months of smelling her perfume on his shirts. 6 months of noticing the way he smiled at his phone during dinner. 6 months of lying awake at 2 a.m. while he worked late at the hospital, knowing exactly where he really was. The day I finally confronted him, I'd planned it carefully. I'd made his favorite dinner, lamb chops with rosemary potatoes. I'd put on the dress he'd bought me for our 10th anniversary. The blue one, he said, made my eyes look like the ocean. I'd set the table with candles and our wedding china. I wanted to give him every chance to choose me. "David," I said as he walked through the door of our Westchester home, still in his scrubs, "we need to talk." He didn't even look surprised, didn't ask what about, just set his keys down on the marble counter, the counter I'd spent weeks picking out when we renovated, and said, "I know." Those 2 words should have been the beginning of a conversation. Instead, they were the end of my marriage. "Her name is Lindsey," he continued, pouring himself a scotch from the crystal decanter his father had given us. "She's a surgical resident, and I'm in love with her. Not, I'm sorry, not, it was a mistake, just a simple declaration of fact, delivered with the same clinical detachment he used to tell patients they had cancer." "For how long?" My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Does it matter?" He took a drink. "Sarah, this marriage has been over for years. We both know it." "I didn't know it," I whispered. "You did. You just didn't want to see it." He loosened his tie, the burgundy one I'd given him for his birthday. "I want a divorce. Lindsey's pregnant. We're getting married as soon as the papers go through." The world tilted. The room spun. I gripped the back of the dining chair to keep from falling. "Pregnant?" The word came out broken. 3 months. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry you had to find out like this, but it's better to be honest, right? Clean break." Clean break. Like 15 years of marriage could be severed as easily as a scalpel through tissue. I thought about the 3 miscarriages I'd endured, the fertility treatments that had drained our savings and my hope, the way David had eventually stopped coming to the appointments, stopped pretending he still wanted children with me. He'd moved on to someone who could give him what I couldn't, someone younger, someone fertile, someone who hadn't failed him again and again. Have you ever felt your entire identity shatter in a single moment? "Get out," I said quietly. "Sarah, get out!" The scream tore from my throat, raw and feral. "Get out of my house! Get out of my life!" He left, didn't fight, didn't try to comfort me, just grabbed his keys and walked out, leaving me standing in our dining room with cold lamb chops and melted candles and the ruins of everything I'd believed my life was. I didn't cry, not then. I was too shocked, too empty, too broken to feel anything at all. The tears came later. They came when I realized that the affair hadn't just cost me my marriage. It had cost me everything. I met Dr. David Mitchell when I was 26, and he was a first-year surgical resident at Mount Sinai. I was working as an event coordinator for a medical nonprofit, and he was volunteering at one of our fundraisers. He was brilliant, charismatic, ambitious. He talked about changing the world through medicine, about pioneering new surgical techniques, about leaving a legacy. I was captivated. Our courtship was intense. Flowers delivered to my office, weekend trips to the Hamptons, late-night conversations about dreams and futures and forever. He proposed after 6 months, a princess-cut diamond, down on one knee in Central Park, tourists applauding. "Marry me," he'd said. "Build a life with me. Be my partner in everything." I said yes without hesitation. The red flags were there from the beginning, but I was too in love to see them. Red flag 1, David wanted me to quit my job. "I'm going to be making good money soon," he'd said. "You don't need to work. Focus on making our home beautiful, on planning our future." I'd loved my job, loved coordinating events, bringing people together for good causes, but David made it sound like my work was trivial compared to his. So I quit, became a full-time wife and homemaker at 27. Red flag 2, David controlled our finances. I'm better with money, he'd explained. Let me handle it. You focus on the house. Every credit card was in his name. Our bank accounts required his signature. I got an allowance for groceries and household expenses, deposited weekly into an account he monitored. I told myself it was practical, efficient. He was the breadwinner, of course he should manage our finances. Red flag 3, David isolated me from my friends. They're jealous of what we have, he'd say when I mentioned plans with my college roommates. They're single and bitter. Why would you want to spend time with people who resent your happiness? Slowly, the invitations to girls' nights stopped. The calls became less frequent. I lost touch with everyone except David's colleagues' wives, women who smiled too much and competed over whose husband was more successful. Red flag 4, David wanted children immediately, not because he loved kids, but because it was the next checkbox on his life plan. Marriage at 30, children at 32, partner at the hospital at 35. I was the incubator for his timeline. When the first miscarriage happened at 8 weeks, David was sympathetic. The second, at 12 weeks, he was frustrated. The third, at 6 weeks, he was angry. Maybe you're too stressed, he'd said, like it was my fault my body kept rejecting his legacy. The fertility treatments started after that. Hormones that made me sick and emotional, procedures that were painful and invasive, month after month of hope and failure. David stopped coming to appointments. "He have surgery scheduled," he'd say. "You can handle this." I handled it alone. Handled the injections, the ultrasounds, the negative pregnancy tests, the grief of losing something that never fully existed. And all the while, David's resentment grew. I could feel it in the way he looked at me, in the way he stopped touching me unless it was scheduled around my ovulation window, in the way he flinched when I cried. I'd become an obligation, a disappointment, a wife who couldn't fulfill her basic biological function. That's when Lindsey appeared. 28 years old, beautiful, brilliant surgical residence, and apparently incredibly fertile. I'd met her once at a hospital function. She'd smiled at me with perfect white teeth and said, "Dr. Mitchell talks about you all the time. You're so lucky to have him." I'd smiled back, not knowing she was already sleeping with my husband. The divorce process was brutal. David had his lawyer, a shark in Armani who specialized in protecting wealthy men from their soon-to-be ex-wives. I had a court-appointed attorney because I couldn't afford to hire anyone better. See, I'd made another critical mistake during our marriage. I'd trusted David completely. No prenup. He'd said it was unromantic. No separate savings account. He'd said it showed a lack of faith in our union. No job. He'd said I didn't need one. Which meant when he filed for divorce, I had nothing. The house was in his name. He'd bought it before we married, so it was his separate property. The cars were in his name, gifts, he claimed, not marital assets. The investment accounts, the retirement funds, everything, structured carefully to be his alone. "Your Honor," his lawyer argued in court, "Miss Mitchell hasn't worked in 15 years. She's been completely supported by my client. While Dr. Mitchell has built a successful surgical practice, Miss Mitchell has contributed nothing financially to the marriage." Nothing. That word again. 15 years of making his home, 15 years of hosting dinner parties for his colleagues, 15 years of enduring fertility treatments to give him children, 15 years of my life reduced to nothing. The judge, a woman in her 60s who should have understood, looked at me with something like pity. "Miss Mitchell, do you have any income or assets of your own?" "No, Your Honor. I trusted my husband to—" "The reality is, you made choices. You chose not to work. You chose to be financially dependent. The court can't penalize Dr. Mitchell for your choices. I got temporary spousal support, $3,000 a month for 3 years, meant to give me time to become self-sufficient. After that, nothing. David got everything else: the house, the cars, the investments, his new life with his pregnant mistress. I got a 2008 Honda Civic with 140,000 miles and an apartment in Yonkers that smelled like mildew. The day I moved out, David wasn't there. He'd already moved Lindsey in. I could see her things in our bedroom, their bedroom now. Her clothes in my closet, her toiletries in my bathroom, her prenatal vitamins on the counter. I took what I could carry: clothes, photos, books, my grandmother's jewelry. I left behind 15 years of memories and walked out of that house for the last time. My best friend from college, Monica, helped me move. She'd come back into my life when she heard about the divorce, apologizing for staying away. "I should have fought harder to stay in your life," she said, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs to my tiny apartment. "I knew David was isolating you. I should have—" "It's not your fault," I said. "I let it happen." We unpacked in silence. Monica kept trying to make conversation, but I couldn't engage. I was numb, hollowed out, a shell of a person going through motions. That night, alone in my new apartment with sirens wailing outside and neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls, I finally cried. Great heaving sobs that shook my entire body. I cried for my marriage, for my lost babies, for the 15 years I'd wasted on a man who discarded me the moment I stopped being useful. I cried until I had nothing left. And then I made a decision. I would survive this. Somehow, I would survive. Have you ever had to rebuild your life from absolute zero? The letter came 3 weeks after I moved into my mildew-smelling apartment. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize, Chen and Associates, Estate Planning. The return address was in Boston. I opened it, expecting another bill I couldn't pay. Instead, I found this. Dear Mrs. Mitchell, I am writing to inform you of a matter concerning the estate of Dr. Helen Whitmore, who passed away 8 months ago. Dr. Whitmore named you as a beneficiary in her will. Specifically, she left you 1. A property at 47 Beacon Hill, Boston, Massachusetts, estimated value $2.8 million. 2. Her investment portfolio, estimated value $4.2 million. 3. Her medical research patents, estimated annual royalties $400,000. 4. A personal letter, enclosed. Please contact our office to begin the inheritance transfer process. I read it 3 times, certain it was a mistake. Dr. Helen Whitmore. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. Then I opened the second envelope, the personal letter. Dear Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And if you're reading this now, I suspect you're also going through something difficult. You won't remember me. We only met once, when you were 7 years old. I was your mother's college roommate and best friend. I was there the day you were born. Your mother named you Sarah Helen, after me. Your mother and I lost touch after she married your father. He didn't approve of me, said I was a bad influence, too feminist, too successful, too independent. When your mother died 10 years ago, I tried to reconnect with you, but you are already married to David Mitchell, and from what I observed, he was exactly like your father, a man who needed to control everything. I've been watching from a distance, watching you shrink, watching you lose yourself, watching him erase you. I couldn't interfere. You had to live your own life, make your own choices. But I could do this. I could ensure that when you finally needed resources to escape, you'd have them. The house is yours, the money is yours, the patents from my cancer research are yours, all held in an irrevocable trust that no spouse can ever touch. I've also included something else, documentation. every hospital complaint filed against David Mitchell, every malpractice suit settled quietly, every ethical violation swept under the rug because Daddy is on the hospital board. Your husband is not the brilliant surgeon everyone thinks he is. He's a mediocre doctor with a powerful father and a talent for self-promotion. If you want revenge, the ammunition is in this file. But more importantly, if you want freedom, you have it now. Build something beautiful, Sarah. Build the life your mother wanted for you, the life you deserve. With love, Dr. Helen Whitmore. My hands shook as I pulled out the final document from the envelope, a thick file labeled David Mitchell, MD, Confidential. Inside, copies of 3 malpractice suits, 2 patient deaths that had been blamed on complications, 5 formal complaints about surgical errors, documentation of David's father using his position as chief of surgery to bury investigations. David wasn't the gifted surgeon he claimed to be. He was protected, dangerous, and I had proof. I sat on the floor of my tiny apartment, surrounded by documents that could destroy my ex-husband's career, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Dr. Whitmore, a woman I barely remembered, had given me everything I needed to rebuild, and everything I needed to fight back. But first, I had to become someone worthy of this gift. The house on Beacon Hill was stunning. A 4-story brownstone with original hardwood floors, exposed brick, bay windows overlooking the park. It had been Dr. Whitmore's home for 40 years. Every room held traces of her life. Medical textbooks lining the walls, framed diplomas, photos of her at conferences receiving awards. This was what a woman could build when she refused to shrink. I moved to Boston 3 weeks later, left Yonkers and everything that reminded me of David, started fresh. The first thing I did was cry. I cried in every room of that beautiful house, cried for Dr. Whitmore, who'd saved me from the grave, cried for my mother, who'd loved her, cried for myself, for the years I'd lost, for the woman I'd let myself become. Then I stopped crying and started building. Monica helped me again. She'd been living in Boston for 5 years, working as an art gallery director. When I called to tell her about the inheritance, she screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I knew Helen Whitmore, she said. I knew of her. She was a legend in cancer research. Sarah, do you realize how many lives she saved? I'm starting to, I said. Monica came over with wine and takeout. We sat in my living room, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. What are you going to do? Monica asked. I don't know, I admitted. I haven't worked in 15 years. I have money, but I don't have purpose, identity. I don't know who I am anymore. Then figure it out, Monica said simply. You have time now. You have resources. You don't have to be David's wife anymore. You can be anyone you want. I started small. First, therapy. I found Dr. Patricia Okaffer, a therapist who specialized in helping women recover from narcissistic abuse. Twice a week, I sat in her office and learned words like gaslighting, financial abuse, coercive control. What David did to you wasn't just cruel, it was systematic. He isolated you, made you dependent, and then discarded you when you no longer served his purposes. But I let it happen, I said. I made those choices. Did you? Or did he manipulate you into thinking they were your choices? She leaned forward. Sarah, you were 26 when you met him, 27 when you married him. He was older, established, confident. He positioned himself as your guide, your protector. Then, slowly, methodically, he took away your autonomy. Understanding this didn't make the pain go away, but it helped me stop blaming myself. Second, education. I enrolled in courses at Boston University, business administration, marketing, nonprofit management. At 41 years old, I sat in classes with 20-somethings and relearned how to be a student. It was humbling, terrifying, exhilarating. I discovered I was good at nonprofit management, really good. I understood how to coordinate events, work with donors, create programs. All those skills I developed in my 20s, then abandoned, they came flooding back. Third, purpose. Dr. Whitmore's will had included one request that I use her research patents to fund cancer research for women. The royalties, $400,000 annually, were substantial. I created a foundation, the Helen Whitmore Women's Cancer Research Fund, hired a small team, started awarding grants to researchers studying ovarian, breast, and cervical cancers. It gave me something David never had, a legacy that mattered. A year into my new life, Monica suggested we have lunch at a trendy restaurant in Back Bay. "You look different," she said, studying me across the table. "Different how?" "Happy, confident, like yourself again." She grinned. "Actually, better than yourself, like a version of yourself that David never got to see." She was right. I'd cut my hair, a sleek bob that made me look professional and fierce. I'd started dressing differently, clothes I chose, not clothes David approved of. I'd gained some weight back. The stress-induced thinness had faded, replaced with health. I was 42, and for the first time since my 20s, I liked the woman I saw in the mirror. Have you ever lost yourself so completely that finding yourself again felt like meeting a stranger? By year 2, the foundation was thriving. We'd awarded $1.2 million in grants, funded 3 promising research projects, hosted a gala that raised an additional $600,000. I'd been interviewed by Boston Magazine about Dr. Whitmore's legacy and my work continuing it. The article included a photo of me in my Beacon Hill home office, surrounded by medical journals and grant applications. I looked competent, professional, powerful. The article went viral in medical circles, which meant David saw it. He called me on a Tuesday evening. I hadn't heard his voice in over 2 years. "Sarah," he said, and I could hear the surprise, the confusion. "I saw the article. You're running a cancer research foundation?" "I am." That's great. Really great." He paused. "I didn't know you inherited money. From Dr. Whitmore?" "She was my mother's best friend," I said neutrally. Right. Another pause. "Sarah, I've been thinking about you. About us. I made mistakes. I know that now." My stomach clenched. "What do you want, David?" "I want to apologize, properly. Can we meet? Have coffee? I'd really like to explain things." "Explain what? That you left me for your pregnant mistress? That you destroyed my life?" "I didn't destroy your life," he said, voice hardening. "You're clearly doing fine. Better than fine. You're running a foundation, living in a mansion in Boston." "Because someone who actually cared about me saved me. No thanks to you." "Sarah, please, just coffee. 1 hour, that's all I'm asking." I should have said no, should have hung up, but something made me curious. "Why?" I asked. "Why now?" He hesitated. "Lindsey left me, took our daughter, filed for divorce, says I'm... Never mind, it doesn't matter. I miss you. I miss what we had." "No, you miss having someone you could control," I thought. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. I told Dr. Okafor about the call at our next session. "What do you think he really wants?" she asked. "I don't know. Part of me thinks he's genuinely lonely, but part of me thinks..." "Thinks what?" "Thinks he sees me as successful now and wants back in, wants to be associated with my foundation, wants to use me again." Dr. Okafor nodded. "Trust your instincts. They're usually right about people like David." I didn't call David back, didn't respond to his follow-up texts, blocked his number after the 5th call. That's when he showed up at my house. I was working in my home office when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw him standing on my stoop in his expensive coat, looking older than I remembered. I debated not answering, then decided I wanted to see what he'd say. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Sarah," he smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I look amazing." "What do you want, David?" "I told you I want to talk, to apologize properly." He glanced past me into the house. "This place is incredible. Helen Whitmore really did care about you." "She did, unlike you." He flinched. "I deserve that. I know I hurt you. I was selfish and cruel and you're here because your perfect new life fell apart. Lindsey left you. You're probably facing consequences at work now that Daddy isn't protecting you anymore." His face changed. What are you talking about? I know about the malpractice suits, the complaints, the surgical errors, all of it. The color drained from his face. How? Dr. Whitmore did her research. She wanted me to understand exactly who I'd married. You have no right to that information. That's confidential. It's a matter of public record, just buried by your father's influence. I crossed my arms. But he retired last year, didn't he? And now, people are starting to ask questions. David's jaw tightened. What do you want? Money? Is this blackmail? I laughed. It felt good. I don't want anything from you, David. I have money. I have a home. I have work I care about. I have a life. What could you possibly offer me? He stared at me like a stranger, which I was. I wasn't the broken, dependent woman he'd discarded. I was someone new, someone he couldn't control. Get off my property, I said quietly. Don't come back. Don't call. We're done. I closed the door in his face, and I felt free. David didn't handle rejection well. 2 weeks after I shut the door in his face, articles started appearing online. Anonymous sources claiming the Helen Whitmore Foundation was misusing funds, that I wasn't qualified to run a nonprofit, that I'd manipulated an elderly woman into leaving me her estate. It was all lies, but lies can be dangerous when they're told convincingly. Then came the lawsuit. David filed a claim against Dr. Whitmore's estate, alleging that the inheritance should have been disclosed during our divorce proceedings, and that he was entitled to half. His lawyer, a different shark this time, argued that I'd concealed assets and defrauded David during our divorce. Never mind that I hadn't known about the inheritance until after the divorce was final. Never mind that the trust was specifically structured to be separate from any marital assets. David was trying to take the one thing that had saved me. Monica was furious. He can't do this. He has no legal standing. He has money and lawyers and desperation, I said. That's a dangerous combination. I hired my own lawyer, Margaret Chen from Chen & Associates, the same firm that had handled Dr. Whitmore's estate. She was brilliant, ruthless, and personally invested in protecting Helen's legacy. He has no case, Margaret assured me. The trust is airtight, but he can make your life difficult for a while, tie up assets, generate negative publicity. It's a harassment strategy. What can I do? Margaret smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. You can fight back, and you can hit him where it really hurts. She slid a folder across her desk. Inside, more documentation of David's medical misconduct. But this time, it included something new. One of Dr. Whitmore's colleagues reached out to me, Margaret explained. Dr. Richard Santos. He's a surgeon who worked with David at Mount Sinai. He's been documenting David's errors for years, trying to get someone to listen. I read through Dr. Santos's files. 3 botched surgeries in the past year alone, one resulting in permanent disability for the patient, another in a wrongful death, all covered up by David's connections and charm. Dr. Santos is willing to testify, Margaret said, to go public, but he needs someone to support him, someone David can't intimidate. She looked at me meaningfully. You want me to expose him, I said slowly. I want you to protect other women from what David did to you, and protect future patients from what he's doing to them. Have you ever had to decide between protecting yourself and protecting others? I thought about it for 3 days. Thought about how exposing David would make me a target, how it would invite more harassment, more attacks, more pain. But I also thought about the women who'd come after me, the residents he'd mentor and manipulate, the patients whose lives he'd endanger, the future Sarahs who'd believe his lies and waste their lives on him. I called Margaret. Do it, I said. Let's take him down. The expose ran in the Boston Globe on a Sunday morning. Behind the surgeon's mask, Dr. David Mitchell's pattern of medical misconduct and abuse. It detailed everything: the malpractice suits, the covered-up surgical errors, Dr. Santos's testimony, interviews with former colleagues who'd witnessed David's incompetence. But it also included something unexpected: interviews with 3 other women. Women David had dated or married before me. Women he'd isolated, controlled, and discarded. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. The pattern was undeniable. David Mitchell was a narcissist who destroyed women and endangered patients, and he'd been protected for years by his father's influence and his own charm. The article went viral. Major news outlets picked it up. Medical boards opened investigations. Mount Sinai suspended David pending review. His life, the one he'd built on lies and manipulation, collapsed. He tried to call me dozens of times, left voicemails ranging from angry to pleading to threatening. "This is your fault," one message said. "You ruined me, you bitter, vindictive." I deleted them without listening to the end. His lawsuit against the estate was dismissed. The judge called it frivolous and vindictive and ordered David to pay my legal fees. Margaret called to give me the news. "You won, Sarah, completely." "It doesn't feel like winning," I admitted. "It just feels like surviving." "Sometimes that's the same thing," she said gently. The foundation's gala was 2 months later, our biggest fundraiser yet, held at the Boston Harbor Hotel. 300 guests, politicians, researchers, donors, survivors. I stood at the podium in a dress I'd chosen, emerald green, elegant, powerful, and looked out at the crowd. David wasn't there. He'd been stripped of his medical license pending investigation. Lindsey had full custody of their daughter. He was living in a small apartment in Queens, according to Monica's sources, working as a medical consultant. His charmed life was over. But mine was just beginning. 5 years ago, I said into the microphone, I lost everything. My marriage ended, my identity disappeared. I found myself starting over at 41 years old with nothing but a car and a dream. I paused, letting the audience sit with that image. Then Dr. Helen Whitmore gave me a gift. Not just money or property, though those things saved me. She gave me something more important. She showed me who I could become if I stopped letting other people define me. I looked directly at the camera recording the event, knowing this speech would be online, knowing David might see it. To everyone who's ever been told they're nothing, that they've contributed nothing, that they're worthless without someone else, you're not. You're everything. And when you finally break free and step into your power, the people who tried to destroy you will realize they made a fatal mistake. The applause was thunderous. After the gala, Margaret found me on the terrace looking out at the harbor. "You did it," she said, handing me champagne. "You actually did it." "Did what?" "Turn the worst thing that ever happened to you into the best thing." I smiled. "His affair ruined my life," I said, "but it also saved me." Funny how that works. It's been 5 years since David walked out of our dining room and destroyed my world. The Helen Whitmore Foundation now operates in 4 cities, has awarded $8 million in grants, and has funded research that led to 2 breakthrough cancer treatments. I have a staff of 20. I speak at conferences. I advise other nonprofits on management and sustainability. I'm not the woman David married. I'm not even the woman who stood in that Yonkers apartment crying. I'm someone new, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth. David tried to contact me one more time, about 6 months ago. A letter, handwritten, forwarded through Monica. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed the best thing I ever had. I was arrogant and cruel, and I threw away 15 years with an extraordinary woman because I was too stupid to see what I had. Lindsey left me because I did to her what I did to you. The pattern repeated. I see that now. I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I hurt people. I don't expect you to care, but I wanted you to know, watching you build that foundation, seeing you succeed, it made me realize what I lost wasn't a wife. It was a partner, an equal, someone brilliant and capable and strong. I'm glad Dr. Whitmore saved you. I'm glad you didn't let me destroy you completely. I'm sorry for everything. David. I read it once, then I burned it in my fireplace. Not out of anger, out of closure. I'm 47 now, single by choice, dating occasionally, but never seriously. I've learned to be happy alone, to enjoy my own company, to build a life that doesn't need another person to complete it. Last week, I was having coffee with Dr. Santos. We've become friends through the foundation work, when he asked, "Do you ever regret how things turned out?" Never, I said immediately. That affair destroyed my marriage, but it gave me my life back. If David had stayed, I'd still be that woman in Westchester, living small, dreaming small, being small. The affair forced me to become who I was meant to be. So it saved you, Dr. Santos said. In the worst, most painful way possible, but yes, it saved me. Sometimes I walk through my house on Beacon Hill, my house, filled with my things, decorated to my taste, and I think about Dr. Whitmore, about the legacy she left me, about the woman she believed I could become. I think about my mother, who loved Helen but lost her to a controlling man, about how patterns repeat across generations until someone breaks them. I broke the pattern, and now I help other women break theirs. The foundation just hired a new program director. Her name is Lindsey. Not David's Lindsey, a different one. But when I interviewed her and she mentioned she was a single mother rebuilding after a difficult divorce, I saw myself in her eyes. "You'll be great at this job," I told her, "and if you ever need anything, advice, support, resources, I'm here." "Thank you," she said, tears welling up. "You have no idea what this opportunity means." "I do," I said. "I really do." So here's my question for you. When the worst thing that ever happened to you turns out to be the catalyst for the best thing, when betrayal becomes the door to freedom and pain becomes the path to power, was it really the worst thing, or was it the thing you needed most, even though it nearly destroyed you? Because I spent years thinking David's affair ruined my life, but the truth is, it saved me from a life that was already ruined. What would you do if the person who broke you gave you the opportunity to rebuild yourself into someone unbreakable?